Hi everyone and welcome, my name is Nicole and today I'm going to talk about the best romances that I've read in 2021. They were not romances that were released in 2021, they were just romances that I've read in 2021. The book that I'm going to start with is Secrets of a Summer Night by 𝕊𝕊𝕙𝕀𝔸𝕃. It is not an unknown book. People know about it, people love it. I am just dipping my toes in historical romances and I want to read the best. I'm not into finding new things yet, not at that stage, because I have not read that many historical romances in my adult life. I've read them as a teenager. Secrets of the Summer Night is the first in the Wallflower series and it checks out every single thing that I love in historical romances, except maybe there were not many queers, or rather there were not any queers in this book, which is something that I love in historical romances as well, obviously. And I read some this year. Not sure if any made it to the list though. No, which is sad actually, because usually I have Cat Sebastian on this list, and the 2021 release I really enjoyed, but it was not my favorite. Secrets of a Summer Night checks out every box, as I've said. Most of the boxes. It centers around a group of friends. It has a dislike to love romance. It also has class difference, which I love in historical romances. It is very funny. It is very lighthearted. This is something that I really love about historical romances. Give me funny and you're going to buy my attention. Because romance is a genre I pick up to distress, so angsty romances are definitely not my thing, usually. 𝕊𝕊𝕙𝕀𝔸𝕃 somehow mixes historical romance, which usually is associated with soaps or angsty serious romances, and humor, and I love that about it. I love the main couple. I thought they had a pretty good chemistry. I love the protagonist. I just love the hook as well. The story centers around a heroine whose family lost most of their money. Her father died, and the only way she can make some money, being of noble blood, is to marry rich, or to marry well in general. She is in her late 20s and is considered a spinster, so her prospects are not very good. The men of high society also are aware of her financial situation, so they do not want to engage. They would rather see her as a mistress rather than a wife, and she's firm in her decision to marry. At one of the balls, she meets a few other girls that also have their dance cards empty for a variety of reasons. They strike a fast friendship and decide to help each other find husbands. It is an extremely entertaining read, but also the conflict is very good in this one. The chemistry between the hero and heroine is impeccable. It's really good stuff. I really dig them. It's dislike to love. The heroine really dislikes the hero because he's a self-made man and he doesn't have the manners of the high society gentleman, so she thinks of him as a brute and someone who's not especially cultured. I sometimes hear about class difference romances where the noble person dislikes their love interest that is of a lower class because they are poor, and I hate that. This one struck a perfect balance because you understood why she disliked him, but you also did not dislike her for being snobbish, for example. Good chemistry, funny dialogue, and a focus on friendship is a recipe of success for me. The next book is the only young adult romance on this list. It's She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. You guessed it. If you're watching my channel, you know how much I love this book. I gushed about it in every video that I could include this book into. I loved it. Kelly Quinlan is a genius. She's the author to watch. She's the author to read. I hope she's going to continue to write romances specifically. I've read one of her other books. It was mostly a contemporary, and I loved this one much more. I feel like it was very successful. I love the characters. I got really attached to them, and it's really hard to win me over with a young adult contemporary because I'm getting older and I'm not that interested in what teenagers do. I feel like the references in this, though, were very millennial, so I don't know how Gen Z reacted to this book, but as a millennial, I loved it because the characters quoted and talked about all the movies I've seen as a child. Unpopular opinion, I love pop culture references. I genuinely don't understand why people don't like them and find them cringe. You loved those shows. Are you cringe now because you love them? The logic escapes me. Every single book is going to age. The classics do not read as modern work either, so, I loved this book. I found the story so compelling. The romance was swoony. It is about two girls. One of them is a basketball player. The other one is a cheerleader. And they don't have the best relationship because of the past misunderstanding, I would say. They get into an accident at the parking lot at their school. Parents force them to give each other rides in the morning because one of the cars survived the accident and the other one needed repairs. So even though they didn't even really like each other at first, they're forced to spend time together and they discover new sides of themselves. They become kind of friends from this experience. One of them proposes they fake date because she wants to spite her ex-girlfriend, and the other one also needs it. Not going to spoil why. So they do it, and obviously they fall in love. It is a perfect book. I dream it becomes a film at some point. It would be perfect as an adaptation. Not many queer films and queer teenage films are happy and fun because of all the drama that we have to process while we are teenagers and even later in life. So I would really like teenagers to have that. Me as well. I'm a bit selfish in that. So my personal goal for this book is to push it at as many people as possible. Side note, I loved how it was funny and lighthearted, but also managed to touch on some tough themes such as abusive relationships, because one of the characters had a pretty toxic relationship with her ex, and it's discussed in this book, and it's one of the things that she has to work through. I loved it. I thought it added depth to the novel and made it memorable. The next book I want to talk about is also not a revelation. I guess it's a bit of a revelation because I don't usually talk about MF books on this channel. It's Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. And the girlies, they were not lying when they said that this book is really good. Talia Hibbert is a freaking genius. I loved this. I also read the second book, didn't love it as much because Dani is not my type of girl. She's a bit flaky and I hate flakes. Chloe, though, is everything. I love her. I love that she's posh and prissy. I just loved this book. I listened to the audio and I feel like it's a good way to consume this book because the narrator is amazing. She has a very appealing British accent. I love the story. I love that it's setting up for the stories of the other Brown sisters. And I think I'm going to love the third one as well because it seems like it's everyone's favorite from the series. The story features a woman named Chloe who has a chronic illness and who had a health scare which prompted her to finally do things that she always wanted to do. So she makes a checklist of things she always wanted to try, and one of the things is to have more sex. I think the proper quote was more casual sex. There's a guy named Red that manages her apartment complex and they have undeniable chemistry, but they never clicked, and he thinks that she's marvelous and amazing and beautiful, but he doesn't believe that she likes him. One day he helps her save a cat from a tree and they start talking more, become friendly, and he starts helping her with her checklist. At some point their relationship develops. This book was funny, it was spicy, loved the chemistry between the hero and heroine. I thought It was absolutely brilliant. It balanced the fluffy, sexy parts and the regular unsexy things that we have to deal with every single day. Tyler Hibbert did something every single romance book has to do, in my opinion, which is show that these two are gonna be good partners for each other. And I think that the chronic illness storyline also helped with that, because we saw how caring Red is and how willing he is to work at Chloe's speed. I love this book. I loved the Brown sisters dynamic. Also, I stan their grandma, Gigi. She is an icon and she needs her own book. I was in a royal woman's craze after watching Young Royals a few times. Let's leave it at a few times, because it was definitely 3 times, not including all the reaction videos that I also checked out on YouTube. Young Royals is brilliant, by the way. If you have not seen that show, check it out. So I was obsessed with queer royal romances specifically, and after some thorough digging, I found Playing the Palace by 𝕊𝕆ℙ𝕀𝔸𝕃. And when I'm telling you I was obsessed with this book, I read it in the elevator, while doing groceries, not as an audiobook, as an ebook. I read it during my lunch. I was literally glued to it. And I so rarely am these days, because my eyes wander and I want to do a couple of things at the same time. So for a book to have this power over me, it has to be special. At least it has to be special for me. It's an MM royal romance where the royal person is actually out, which was a very interesting angle, because we tend to think about queer royalty as people that cannot be out, because media is not kind to queer celebrities and general public also. But even if we had an out queer royal, you bet the newspapers would be on their ass for every single thing they do. That is what this book represented. The non-royal hero worked as a party organizer and was organizing a conference where the prince who was out had to appear, and they accidentally meet because the prince wanted to rehearse his speech early. The sparks flew, there was attraction, they started talking, but the dating stuff was not easier because everyone was out. They were under the microscope every single time they were together. It was a very, very interesting angle for a queer royal romance. I love this book because it was incredibly funny, like laugh out loud funny. I love the friendships, the family stuff, the relationship that the two heroes developed, and I loved their chemistry. I really, really enjoyed the book. I thought that the writing style was very easy to consume. It was very uplifting. It was very fun. It's a low-heat romance if it's important to you. I really love this, especially as a representative of this trope, because it was unusual. The next book is, of course, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. The way I doubted that I'm going to love it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing because I was like, I'm not going to love it. Casey McQuiston is amazing. I love everything they do, but I'm just not going to love it because it has all the tropes that I dislike. Stuck in a time loop trope. Everything that has to do with time I don't like usually. It has an amnesia trope. It sounded like something I'm just not going to enjoy, and I loved it so much, you have no idea. I can talk about this novel for hours and hours, and I don't feel like people talked enough about it, especially compared to Red, White, and Royal Blue, but we know why. We just know why. This book is amazing. It's so swoony. It feels so epic. The romance in it feels so epic. It transcends time and place, and I love that about romances. They feel much more special when they do that. It's a story about a young woman named August who moves to New York to start a new leaf because she has tense relationship with her mother. She meets a charming woman named Jane on the subway, and she decides to ask her out because somehow they constantly end up in the same train, and Jane rejects her. But then Jane continues to engage with her and talk to her, so she discovers that Jane actually cannot go on a date with her because she's stuck on the train and she's actually from a different time. It's amazing. It's brilliant. It has the feel of older romantic comedies and romantic movies in general, the movies that I was raised on. Casey McQuiston is genius. As I said, they can write about anything. Their books just head where they are supposed to head. They are full-fledged lives. They're not stories. You can tell who these characters are. They have fleshed out backstories. You genuinely get attached to them. The way I simped for Jane, I have not simped for any other character ever in a book. I loved August and Jane's chemistry. I loved the investigation element to the story. I thought it made the story a bit more interesting, a bit more special, a bit more full. During the length of this novel, August is trying to figure out how to pull Jane out of the time loop and how to make it so Jane stays in the modern times, because she really wants her for herself and they do develop a romantic relationship. It's the type of romance that I would reread, and I usually do not read romances a second time. This one is definitely going to be an all-time favorite. I can just tell now. An author that I discovered for myself in 2021 was 𝕊𝕋𝙂. Obviously, I've heard about his books before, but it took me a while to finally pick up Boyfriend Material, which I believe is his most popular book at this point. I am planning to read most of his backlist because I just really loved his writing style. He does amazing things with character dynamics. He's really good at writing friendship groups, and that is something that I really love about romances in general. I told you. This book genuinely hit me in the feels. It is about a guy named Luke who is extremely closed off, and I can definitely relate to that, especially in a romantic sense. This book read me to filth and also healed me, so it was a very interesting experience. Luke is a son of a rock star. His father was absent, so he doesn't really know him, but his career obviously affected him because the guy is stalked by paparazzi all the goddamn time. He cannot take a breath without a camera snapping. His long-term boyfriend broke up with him and gave the paparazzi all the highlights of their relationship, which was very traumatic for Luke and made him scared to get into another serious relationship. At the start of the book, he is caught by paparazzi in a semi-compromising position. He is working for charity and their donation pool is old and conservative. They start writing to his place of work that they're going to stop donating if Luke is going to continue to work for the program because he's not proper. Obviously, it's because he's gay. So his boss tells him that he needs to get a proper goody two-shoes boyfriend to appear a certain way. The problem is Luke cannot get a serious relationship because of his internal issues, which he denies. He denies so hard. One of his friends tells him that she knows somebody, a guy named Oliver, whom Luke was actually introduced to, but they did not start on a good note. So when they're actually set up on a date, it doesn't go well either. But because they both need dates for big events, they decide to fake date. Out of a lot of fake dating books that I've read, and I've checked out a few in my time, this one hit me the most because while it was funny, 𝕊𝕋𝙂 is very funny, it also broke me apart. It's also one of the books that I would be willing to reread, which is unheard of for me. I highly recommend to pick it up and stick with it. Sometimes Luke specifically is unbearable, but you feel for him at the end. You really do. The last book is a special mention. I gave it 4 stars, 4.5 really. There were certain things, like tiny little things that could have been improved in my opinion, but it genuinely made me very excited for the author. It's Bet Against Me by Fiona Riley. It was one of those I was glued to, and it rarely happens, as we know, so I appreciate it. It's a story about 2 rival property agents that are in the business of luxury real estate. They're up against each other in a big award for agents. One of them worked in the industry for a while. The second girl is Kendall. She is new to the city but not new to real estate. Her father is a real estate king. He had his own firm until he did something illegal and was thrown in jail. She cut the ties with her family and decided to be on her own in a new city and to build her own reputation and career. And she got really good at it, which pisses the first girl off. And then she discovers that Kendall actually has a famous father, and she believes that she achieved all the things because of nepotism. She's especially pissed because Kendall actually snatches the award, and they get into a bit of a scuffle because they are from rival agencies. They decide on a bet. They want to see who's gonna be the best agent and who's gonna sell the most condos in a luxury apartment complex that was just built, and who's gonna raise the most money, obviously. What was interesting about this novel is the setup, the chemistry between the characters, obviously. I love that they immediately recognize that the other one is hot, and if the circumstances would have been different, the relationship would have been different. I am a sucker for rivals to lovers, always was, and this one checked out every box that I liked. It was lighthearted, but also had a conflict. It had a really good friendship group, which I think we're going to see in the sequels. I'm very excited about the sequels. They are out, so I can just sit down and read them, which is fun. I also really love it when the characters are professionals and are very competent in their line of work. Nothing pisses me off more when we get a very incompetent protagonist. They're usually women, and at this point I feel like we don't need to demean protagonists to make them likable. There was a very interesting and unexpected third act conflict. I was not especially jazzed by the other ones because they were expected. These are the tiny details that could have been improved. But overall, I had such a good time with this novel, and I really enjoyed it. Even though certain elements could have been worked on a bit more, in my opinion. I've heard that these sequels are even better, so I'm very excited for this author in general, and I wanted to highlight her. These are all the books actually that I wanted to talk about in this video. I've read other romance books. I like them. You can check them out on my Goodreads page, or just check out my other videos where I talk about them. I wanted to focus on the ones that made an impact. In the comments down below, tell me if you read any cool romances in 2021, if you're reading any right now, if you want to recommend me something. Leave it all in the comments down below. Also leave a heart emoji in your favorite color. We're talking about romances. Hello. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another one, but until then, bye.